We're less than a week away from Super Bowl 60 as the Seahawks and Patriots prepare for a championship rematch on Sunday. The host of the Ringer NFL show, Sheil Kapadia, is here to discuss which teams have which advantages and where. Let's light them up.
I'm Jacson Bevins, and this is Cigar Thoughts.
Welcome back to the Cigar Lounge. I am Jacson Bevins, and along with my necromancing producer, Mike Barwin, this is the Cigar Thoughts podcast. Sheil is moments away from joining me, so in the meantime, cigars and whiskey. Cigar Thoughts is proud to be partnered with Seattle Cigar Concierge and Balvenie Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Seattle Cigar Concierge and I have teamed up to release two versions of high-quality Cigar Thoughts stogies, both of which you can purchase by following the link on the show page or by visiting cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Mike and I love doing the show, and there are two ways y'all listening and watching can help support it so that we can keep the episodes coming. One is by purchasing the cigars. The other is by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts, where you can watch full episodes as well as the funny and insightful clips that Mike puts together. Give a thumbs up to the stuff you like, and let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, you can listen to us everywhere you get your podcasts. Now, we've all had a week to emotionally recover from and relive the championship games, and now the focus switches fully to the final game of the season. As usual, the Super Bowl is full of storylines and narratives. You've got Drake May's ascent, Sam Darnold's rebirth, a revenge game for Seattle from 11 years ago. It's all great stuff, and it's worthy of the time spent on it, but once that ball's kicked off on Sunday, all that falls by the wayside, and the title will be determined by the battles on the field. That's why I'm stoked about today's guest. He's the host of the Ringer NFL show, where he showcases his keen understanding of why games are won and lost at this level. He and I are going to go through all the positional and strategic matchups in this one. He is Sheil Kapadia. Sheil, what's up, man?
You know, Jacson, until you mentioned that 11 years ago, I hadn't realized that I got to see my relationship with Seahawks fans started after that game because I joined ESPN the summer after that Super Bowl loss in the aftermath of one of the wildest moments in NFL history. And I was there to kind of analyze the ruins. And here we are, like you said, 11 years later, Seahawks are favored in a season that I don't know anybody that expected them to be in this position. And here we are talking about it. So this is why, I guess, as they say, the NFL is king, because stuff like this happens.
Well, and it's what makes you such a perfect guest for this show, because not only do you understand the game so well and follow each of the teams so closely, and it's so apparent when you listen to your show, but you were a part of this franchise and covering this franchise, a decade ago. And so there is some familiarity with how things work inside the building. Even though almost everybody has turned over, you were seeing John Schneider and company operate from trying to preserve what they had built, starting, that 2015 and on, and like every NFL team, inevitably, it did come down. It didn't crumble all the way to ruins like it does for some franchises, but it came down. And now they've rebuilt a team that, at least statistically, if you like the analytics, is every bit as good or better than the teams that went to back-to-back Super Bowls 10, 12 years ago.
It's crazy. It doesn't happen often in the NFL where you have a great run and then, within a decade or however long you want to say, you have another great run. And here they are positioned to win the Super Bowl. Yeah, it's crazy. I remember we did a live podcast with, Mina Kimes and Bill Barnwell back when I was in Seattle. And then I remember someone gave Mina the DVOA jersey, and here they are. They're DVOA kings once again.
That's right.
All the statistics about one of the best NFL teams they've ever tracked. And at times it's felt like that. And so I just, when you look at this game, and I know we're going to break it all down, but it's kind of like if they blow the Patriots out, I almost can't believe how we're going to be talking about this Seahawks team just in terms of NFL history in the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah, it's something that I've been, I wouldn't say struggling with, but kind of puzzling over for the last number of weeks, because the Seahawks have been the number one DVOA team for a while now. And have been steadily like moving up the all-time ranks. Right now, they got damn near 50 years of data. So what's that make it? 1,500 plus 1,600 seasons in the database. And they're tied for the 5th highest DVOA entering a Super Bowl of all time. And you look at the teams that are there with them, and you can tell like it matches the eye test. And I was like, okay, like I understand that intellectually, but why do I not feel it in my heart? Yeah. And I think it's because this is not a team that is loaded with superstars. This is a team that is winning and winning handily. You know, one of the things that I've been fond of pointing out that I noticed you pointed out in your most recent article is, yeah, this team lost 3 games. That's not very many. But what's crazy about it is those 3 losses add up to 9 total points. And so you look at that and you're like, okay, they've never been blown out. They've been in all 19 games that they've played. And they have also blown out. It's kind of easy to forget because their games have been comfortably in hand, so many of them, but they've won so many games by 3 scores, but it's not with any MVPs. It's not with any personalities that are dominating the debate shows and the discourse. It's, you know, outside of JSN, it's no first team all pros. Whereas 10 years ago, the Seahawks were not only the best team in the NFL by many metrics, they were probably the most interesting team because you had Marshawn and you had the Legion of Boom and you had Pete Carroll and Michael Bennett and headline makers on and off the field. This team is almost refreshingly devoid of that.
It's funny you should say that because I remember my first time walking into that locker room in 2015 and you look around and you're just like, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Russell Wilson, Marshawn. Like everywhere I looked, there Bobby Wagner, you know, and then there's like really good player, like, you know, then there's like the KJ Wrights and the Cliff Avrils and the Michael Bennetts. And I'm just like, how many superstars? I don't think I realized till I set foot in there how many superstars were on that team. And yeah, we always talked about those Seahawks teams, those 3 drafts that John Schneider had. That you were just like, oh my gosh, look at the talent they accumulated here. And this one is just different. To your point, you know, it's not that they're not talented. Sure, they've got, but it's more a lot of very good players, defensively, scheme fits, defensively. A guy who knows how we're going to be talking about Mike McDonald 10 years from now in NFL history as a defensive coach, like could be an all-time defensive coach. He's on that trajectory. And then the biggest surprise is, you know, for me personally, and I've said it before, it's just what they've done offensively. I didn't see it coming. I didn't think with this quarterback, with this offensive line, with this pretty unproven offensive coordinator that they would be able to play this well. So I thought defense is going to be awesome. Offense, even if they're good, they'll be mediocre. And, you know, maybe they'll win 9-10 games if things go well. I didn't see this dominant of a season coming for the Seattle Seahawks.
And I think anybody that tells you they saw this coming is lying to themselves or is just living in the kind of like hopeful oblivion that I am jealous of, you know, when it comes to being a football fan. But, you know, you're right. It truly is a whole is greater than the sum of its parts type of situations. And I don't mean to say that this team is devoid of personalities. They absolutely have it. But it's the type that moves the needle for people covering this team and fans of this team. Devin Witherspoon is the heart and soul of this operation and is legitimately an all-pro talent, is not leading First Take, right? Like he's not
unless
dominating the
wrong.
conversation.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Right? They've got Leonard Williams and Ernest Jones and guys with big personalities, but it's not like that how it was then. And one thing that it does is it keeps the story being about the team as opposed to about individual players. And at least for now has kept the distracting discussions at a minimum. Now, we saw how difficult it is to keep that together when the bills start becoming due on extensions, and those are bridges that this team will have to cross in the next few years. But right now, it just seems like everything has come together in a way that I don't think anyone outside of the building, and probably some people inside of the building, saw coming to this degree. So, you know, it's going to be really, really interesting to see if they can finish what has been certainly by DVOA standards, a historic March. But to that point, and I mentioned it just a minute ago, you just had an article come out called the Super Bowl Cheat Sheet, and you've got 22 kind of keys to the game in it. It's excellent read. If you're listening or watching this show, when you're done with this, make sure you go read it because it's great. It's just 22 bite-sized, very insightful ways to look at this game. And so I kind of want to leverage that and talk about the different matchups in this game, because I think too often discussions surrounding a Super Bowl or any big game come down to quarterbacks. You spend 80% of the time talking about the quarterbacks, and we'll definitely do that, or the head coaches or the narratives. But I think this game is going to be decided by a lot of different things. So I want to start up front, and I want to look at the Patriots defensive line versus the Seahawks offensive line. Who do you think has an advantage in that matchup?
So it's a good question. I don't think it's like a wash either way. I think the Seahawks offensive line has kind of overperformed their talent this year, overperformed expectations. And I think they do smart stuff schematically, whether it's play action or the different things that Clint Kubiak uses to set the offensive line up for success. I think where the Patriots are strongest is with their defensive tackles, Christian Barmore and Milton Williams. So that could come down to the run game, or, how do you scheme up run so that you're not running at those two guys? That comes down to pressure up the middle with those two guys and Sam Darnold taking care of the football. But I do think there's no doubt about it. That's a key matchup. When you look at Darnold's numbers, pressured versus non-pressured, I mean, it's one of the biggest differences in the entire NFL. And that's not to say he can't make plays when he's pressured, because we watched that Rams game and he was getting drilled on some of those throws and delivering beauties. I mean, he has the courage to stand in there and deliver.
No question.
But just when you look at the numbers and how his just EPA per play, it's like he turns from a top 5 quarterback to maybe a bottom 5 quarterback, depending on whether he's pressured. So the interior is what really has my attention. The Seahawks interior offensive line against those two defensive tackles.
Yeah, I think that is the single biggest matchup in this entire game. And it's why I wanted to start there, because I think the way that the Patriots win this game is by forcing at least 2 turnovers. And I'm not talking about like, it's 3rd and 15 and they pick off a 40-yard pass. I'm talking like field flipping turnovers that make it so their offense does not have to go 70, 80 yards to score, because I think that's going to be really difficult for them to do. And you go through the Seahawks team, and they are above average to elite in so many different places. But if you had to pick one weakness on this team, it would be the interior of the line. Gray Zabel's been excellent, certainly by rookie standards. And I think overall he's been a very good guard. But Jalen Sundell and Anthony Bradford have been spotty. And those are the two guys that I think the Patriots are going to target with Williams and Barmore. And I think we're going to see lots of stunts, and I think we're going to see lots of delayed blitzes coming through those specific gaps and forcing the Seahawks to decide early on, do we need to keep Ken Walker in the backfield and picking up blocks, which is not his strength, in order to give Sam Darnold time? Or are we going to be able to actually weaponize him out in the flat? That is going to be really, really interesting for me to watch. And I think on the flip side, so I give that advantage to the Patriots. Even though I have faith in Seattle's tackles, that's not where New England wins up front anyway. And so I think this is a strength versus weakness matchup. But on the flip side, and I want to bunch these two together, the Patriots offensive line wasn't very good this year, and it's been atrocious in the playoffs, especially at left tackle, which is a spot on the offensive line that Seattle loves to overload and loves to attack, because their first round pick, who was looking very good until he got hurt midway through the season, has been a turnstile in the postseason so far.
No doubt about it. Yeah, Will Campbell has struggled. The pressure has gotten to Drake May. All throughout the season, whenever a younger quarterback plays great, I noticed this with Jaden Daniels last year. It's like everybody else gets credit. All of a sudden it's, the Commanders' offensive line isn't that bad, and Cliff Kingsbury. And sometimes I'm like, well, sometimes the quarterback's really good. And when the quarterback's really good, it makes up for everything else. And that's kind of how I viewed this Drake May season, where he was my MVP. I was like, this guy with this offensive line, with this supporting cast, and they have a top 3 offense in the NFL, I'm giving him the credit over everyone else. And that was during the regular season. And now you watch these 3 playoff games. And I know there's been weather, and I know the Broncos game was weird because they were kind of like, we're just not going to give them the game. We're going to sit on the ball. So I know that was weird. But they've been terrible offensively in the playoffs. I mean, just some of the stats I had in that article. I mean, it really is a horrible offensive performance. And the big thing with Drake May is that during the regular season, he was the best quarterback in the NFL when pressured. And in the playoffs, he's turned into a guy who would be one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL when pressured. So it's getting to him. And I know he's got the shoulder injury, but like he's taking sacks at an alarming rate. I think it's up to 16, 17% in the postseason. He fumbled 6 times. So I'm with you. That matchup up front, and we know Mike McDonald is going to just look at this and be like, how can I confuse him? Who's the fish, as the pass rushers call, the weak offensive linemen? And maybe there's 2 or 3 of them on that Patriots offensive line. How can we, just they're going to have trouble passing off these stunts, our simulated pressures where we're rushing 4, but they don't know which 4 are coming. Maybe we throw a blitz at them, even though we're not the biggest blitzing team. Let's surprise them early. All those things with Mike McDonald are going to be very interesting in this game, to your point, to create those negative plays and create those turnovers.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I think we're on the same page. I think both defensive lines have an edge over the offensive lines that they're facing. Would you say that?
I would say yes. I would say a much wider gap. I would say Seahawks defensive line against the Patriots offensive line.
Yeah, I feel that way as well. And kind of continuing with that theme, because much of that discussion that we just had, just like it usually does when you talk about offensive lines, comes to how it's going to affect the passing game. But these are 2 teams that want to run the football. I mean, I know every NFL head coach wants to run the football, but these teams actually back it up. The Seahawks and the Patriots like to run. They like to run on early downs, and their quarterbacks obviously have been much better when the rushing game has been effective. You mentioned how good Sam Darnold was in the NFC Championship game. We spent a lot of time on that last week as well. In the 4 games prior, the Seahawks actually had more rushing yards than passing yards in those 4 wins. And so that's the kind of football, that complementary football that coaches always talk about, that the Seahawks want to be able to pull off, and that frankly the Patriots are going to need to be able to pull off if they're going to have a chance in this game. So let me ask you this, and take it as one big question. Seahawks run game versus the Patriots run defense, and vice versa. Who do you think has the edges in those 2 matchups? And then which side do you think has the bigger edge?
I think both teams might have trouble running the football in this game. I think you look at that Patriots run defense when Milton Williams got back and got healthy for them. They've been really good. And you look at it like just season long, they've had a very good run defense. And the Seahawks have not, just in terms of efficiency, have not had a great rushing offense, even though there are times where I'm like, is Kenneth Walker like a top 5 back in the end where he should, like it really depends what possession you watch, what quarter you watch, what game you watch with him, where there are times where he looks unstoppable. And we know he's a home run hitter with the number of 20 plus runs he's had this season, but just down to down sustaining, he has not been as good, and that's not all on him, but their run game has not been as good. So to me with Walker, it's not necessarily about like what's his success rate in this game. It's kind of like, can he have 2 big runs, that just like explosive runs at key times in this football game. So that's how I look at that side of the ball. The other side of the ball is going to be interesting to me because I'm with you. The Patriots want to run the ball. I have a hard time seeing them being able to run the football when you just look at it statistically. They have not been an efficient rushing offense this season, and I think there's a chance that the Seahawks just bully them up front in the run game. And I know, people are pointing, well, the Rams ran the ball on the Seahawks. The Rams had the best rushing offense in the NFL by any statistical measure. They were an elite rushing team by the efficiency metrics. The Patriots haven't been anything close to that. So even some of the stats you look at with the Seahawks, it's like they actually are better than what those stats show because they had to face the Rams offense 3 times this season. So I almost wonder if there's a top point in this game. Let's say first half, Patriots are saying, all right, let's try to run the football. And if they're just getting stuffed and they're getting in 2nd and long, 3rd and long over and over again, I do think there's going to be a time in the game where they go, like, Drake May's our quarterback for a reason. He completed over 70% of his passes in the regular season. We don't need him to hold on to the football for 3 seconds, but maybe we do try to take advantage of, of that uncertainty on early downs and have him throw the football a little bit more on first and second down. So I think that is sort of a key to watch in this game for sure, is how Josh McDaniels, how the Patriots handle those early downs. How committed are they to the run? Because there's a chance we're saying in the third quarter, like, they're running into a brick wall. I'm tweeting out some stat, Patriots on first and second down, 9 runs for 12 yards or something like that. Like, that type of game script is in play here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're fast approaching 2 full seasons worth of games since the Seahawks last allowed a 100-yard rusher. And I mean, we gravitate to round numbers. It's an arbitrary cutoff, but like, at some point, someone should have done it. Someone should have broken a long run that gets them halfway there and then compiled another 50 yards on top of that. That doesn't happen. And it forces teams to be one-dimensional. And if the Seahawks run game is clicking and they're able to go down and score 7 or 10 points in their first couple of drives, it's going to be really difficult for Vrabel and McDaniels to sit there and try and force a rush game against the best rush defense in the NFL when you're already down by a score or two. So Seattle has the opportunity to take this away from the Patriots game plan, not just with how they play it on defense, but with what the offense does in the first quarter of that game.
Yeah, the game script is so interesting because on the other end too, and I know we'll talk more about Sam Darnold, but the play action has been such a weapon for them on early downs, capitalizing on that uncertainty with defenses and hitting on explosive plays and I don't really see a scenario. Now, it's the Super Bowl. Anything can happen in a one-game sample. I have a hard time in my head getting to the point where I'm like, the Seahawks have to throw it on every down because they're down by so much so late in the game. But that also, that part does apply to the Seahawks offense as well.
Yeah, certainly. And so that brings us to the receivers versus the secondaries. And this is, I'll get your answer first, but talk to me about the Patriots pass catchers, and that for them very much includes their running backs, and the Seahawks pass catchers against the opposing secondaries.
Yeah, the Patriots, it's sort of like you look at it on paper and you're like, how do they have a top 5 offense with this group? But then you watch the games and you're like, wow, Kayshon Boutte, that's like an incredible catch. And you're like, Stephon Diggs, man, he's still doing it here. So they've got Hunter Henry, the tight end. You mentioned it, the backs that they throw to as well. Matt Collins is all of a sudden, Matt Collins creating an explosive play. So it's not that they're great one-on-one matchups. I think Drake May has a willingness to throw into tight windows. I think he's been an excellent downfield passer, and those guys have made enough plays for them this season. So it's not a great group on paper, like if you just ask me the matchup, but I do think if the Patriots win this game or are playing well offensively, there will be those types of plays. And I know you know these types of plays as a fan where you go, coverage was great. Their guy just made a play. Like, you're not yelling at the cornerback, oh my God, Josh Jobe got smoked here, or Reek Woolen got smoked here. You're kind of like, man, that was good. Tip the hat to the offense. They have a lot of those types of plays, this Patriots offense.
They do. Stephon Diggs is a name for sure. And he's had some really, really good games this year where he's looked like his pre-injury self. But as a whole, they remind me very much of the quote-unquote pedestrian receiver core that the Seahawks had.
Yeah.
2012 through 2014 with Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse and Golden Tate, where if you're not watching them every game, you're just like, those guys are on my bench in fantasy. But like, they're not, maybe I'm starting Doug Baldwin in the flex or Golden Tate on a bye week. But like, this is not a receiving core that scares me, but if you're watching that team and understanding how the offense works and how they want to operate, you understand that any one of those guys can beat you on 3rd and 8. Any one of those guys can sneak over the top for a 50-yard score, even if the production gets so divvied up that none of them are putting up gaudy stat lines over the course of the season. I see a lot of that with these Patriots. The thing that, and this is where I'm going to lean on you, because the Patriots were one of the most effective deep ball passing teams in the NFL this year. Drake May's accuracy on deep balls this year is like among the best ever in terms of his on-target percentage on throws that go more than 20 yards in the air. And the few offenses that have been able to score with any kind of consistency against the Seahawks defense have done it by winning over the top. And it's so hard to do against this defense because these corners are not just bump and run zone corners. They're not these small, sticky man corners. What they do is have the ability to carry routes for 4 seconds at full speed without needing to chop their feet. They just stay with these guys deep in ways that a lot of secondaries can't do. And yet, here the Patriots are beating so many teams over the top 2 or 3 times a game, and that's enough. I struggle to visualize them doing it in this game, but the numbers say that they're capable of doing it, and that they're capable of doing it pretty often, at least relative to the rest of the NFL. How are they going to be able to access the part of the field that really only Matthew Stafford's been able to against Seattle so far this year?
I think this is the game, honestly, because I don't think that Drake May and that Patriots offense will be able to methodically move the ball down the field where we're saying, oh, that was a 9-play drive that took 6 minutes off the clock. Like I have a hard time with the mismatch, what I think is a mismatch up front, thinking that they're going to be able to play that sort of mistake-free football on a long possession. So I think they got to take shots downfield. Now, how do they do it? I mean, I think May gives his guys a lot of opportunities, which is a great trait in a quarterback, where if it's a one-on-one on the outside, it doesn't have to be perfect. His guy doesn't have to be stacking the cornerback, but he says, all right, there's enough there where I'm going to give him a shot, and his receivers do a good job of adjusting to it on the fly. Now you have that aspect, and then they might have to any trick play in the book. I mean, we saw the flea flicker against the Broncos where that created an explosive to Matt Collins. Those types of things, Josh McDaniels has mixed those in big games throughout the course of his career. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried some of that as well. So it's not a great answer for you. You know, I don't think schematically they're going to be like, oh man, you know, we fooled them. We created wide open guys. I mean, McVay can do that a little bit. Stafford can do that. I don't think this Patriots offense is going to do that. I think it's just more, there are going to be opportunities where, hey, it's a one-on-one on the outside. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect look. It's not the best matchup, but let's give them a chance and see if we can come down with one of those plays. I mean, like you said, they did it all year. I mean, they ranked first in explosive play rate in the NFL. Drake May ranked first in EPA per pass play on throws 20 yards downfield. And so that's just built into the offense where they say, we got to get these every week, and they've been able to.
Yeah. And, you know, I think the other thing is strategically, like, yes, if you can establish the run, then you can try and set some of this stuff up. But the way that I look at this is tournament poker, the NFL's giant 32-player poker tournament. We're down to the final 2, and one of them just has more chips than the other does. And when chips are even or even-ish, you can try and win some small hands, and you can play the numbers and, you know, look for small edges to try and gain a chip lead. But if the other guy's got twice as many chips as you, you don't get to play that way. You do need to take some shots. You have to chase some straights with big pots out there. You need to look for high leverage swings in order to chop into that stack. And I think that's what the Patriots are going to be forced into doing, even if they're not down by a couple of scores early, because I don't think they're just going to be able to go hand for hand, blind for blind with the Seahawks in this game. I think they just get bled out if that happens. So if I'm the Patriots, I'm looking for every opportunity to try and get a jump ball to Matt Collins, or to try and slip Kayshon Boutte deep on a little wheel route or something like that, and then trust that my uber accurate quarterback can get the ball there. It's going to be difficult because I don't think that he's going to have a ton of time, but he's very good at extending plays. He's very good at throwing on the run and off platform. And, you know, I said it out loud for the first time to you just now with the receiver comparison to, you know, the Seahawks teams of 12 years ago. And there really are, at least spiritually, a lot of one-to-ones here. Like, I see Stephon Diggs as a Doug Baldwin. I see Demario Douglas as a Golden Tate. I see Kayshon Boutte as the Jermaine Kearse type of receiver. And then Matt Collins is the Ricardo Lockett, David Moore, just big, tall, turns like a battleship type of guy that can steal you a 40-yard catch. Sidney Rice towards the end of his career. So it'll be interesting to see if McDaniels is able to access that part of the game. And then on the other side, so much of the airplane has been built out of Jacson Smith-Njigba this year. And I kept waiting for that to bite this team. And Stacey Rost and I talked about this on the show last week. At some point, you just say, well, I mean, maybe you can't just build the whole airplane out of JSN, because Cooper Kupp has had a really nice playoffs, but these are 50-yard games, right? Rashid Shaheed is liable to catch a big one, but he has had 2 catches or fewer in almost every game since he's come over to the Seahawks. These are not focal points. You see AJ Barner sneak into a wide open uncovered touchdown once every 2 or 3 games, but he's not being circled by opposing defensive coordinators. And so it's just JSN. I have not looked into how much the Patriots travel Christian Gonzalez, because he is their star on defense. He's in the on the short list, in the conversation for best cover corner in the NFL. Do you see them tracking him with JSN as they move him around the formation? Or is he going to stay on one side or just stay on the outside? Let me reframe this. If you're the Patriots defensive coordinator, how are you approaching the JSN problem?
It's a great question. I don't know that anyone's had a good answer all season long. I mean, I think it is so hard to just travel a guy with him, because first of all, then you're saying, all right, we're playing man coverage here, and Sam Darnold has been good against man coverage, and Jacson Smith-Njigba has been probably the best wide receiver in the NFL against man coverage. Like you mentioned,
what you have in your article is 4.16 yards per route run against man coverage. Yeah. That's like a varsity player getting checked down to JV for a game because his grades are bad or missed a practice or something type efficiency. Not what you're supposed to see in the NFL when there's not a legitimate second option.
For context, like 3 yards per route run is like the best receiver in the NFL in any given season. And he's got over 4 yards per route run against man coverage. And then just the totals are up there, top 3 too. So when you're lining him up outside, wide, condensed split, slot, backfield, it's like that's a lot for a defense to adjust to, where all right, well, you got him, all right, wait, they motioned him there, all right, that's a lot to really account for. And then again, are you giving away that you're playing man coverage? So I haven't looked into how often they travel Christian Gonzalez. It's a great question. I'll probably do that right after,
because they do play man at a high rate.
They do. They play man at a higher rate. I think a top 10 rate in the NFL. They've got Carlton Davis on the other side, who also, that's his specialty, is a press man corner. But in this game, I do wonder if they look at it and say, let's be aggressive and play that man coverage, or if they say, let's make them be perfect, because we think we have an edge with our run defense against their run game. So now you're asking Sam Darnold to be really efficient and maybe not allow him to create those explosives. And you're asking Anthony Bradford and you're asking their offensive line to block over and over and over again. It's not just, hey, we're going to do this or the other thing. But I do wonder if they lean a little bit more into that approach versus, hey, let's get, because they do blitz a lot as well. They blitz at a top 10 rate. They're really good at it. They've been one of the best blitzing teams in the NFL. But I don't know that that's how they're going to approach this game. They might. I could be wrong, but when I was writing this thing, I'm kind of going back and forth about, I don't know what I would do. I might try to say, hey, let's try to win with our front four, make them dink and dunk the ball down the field, make them run the ball efficiently, and maybe we get some stops in the red zone versus let's play more of a risk-reward, high-variance type style of defense.
The part of the game that is so important, no one ever wants to talk about. It's boring. It's like if you're previewing a World Series, right? You want to talk about the best hitters on the team. You want to talk about the starting rotation. You may even talk about the closers. But special teams is like the middle relief. It's the setup guys. It's the bullpen of a baseball team or of a football team. And just like in baseball, you don't think about the bullpen until you've got a 1-run lead in the 8th inning. And it's the same thing with special teams. And we have seen Seattle dominate on special teams all season. They are the best special teams unit in the NFL. And it's a huge reason they won the last 2 games against the Rams. It's a huge reason that they are in the Super Bowl, having run the gauntlet that they've run. The Patriots have some really good special teams players, but as a whole, do you see this as like a lopsided matchup when the offenses and defenses are on the sidelines?
It's not like the Rams matchup. I think we could we could say that for sure. I think the Seahawks have the edge, but I think the Patriots, I don't know where they were exactly in DVOA, but I think they were above average, so they were pretty good on special teams. But yeah, you know what? I remember this is like sort of the old man coming out, where I remember Super Bowls where I'm like, I'm going to, analyze every single aspect of this, and I'm going to know more about, and then the game starts and like somebody returns a kickoff for a touchdown in the first quarter. And you're like, oh, that was the game. So you're so right. Sometimes it's a fumbled snap. Sometimes it's a kickoff return. Sometimes it's a punt return. Sometimes it's a missed kick from a great kicker. And it's just like 46-yarder wide right. Or it's like, oh, that guy got a fingertip on the ball. So Shahid, is obviously a key player in this respect, both in terms of special teams, or can he just get one explosive catch on offense like he did in the championship game? But if you look at it just statistically, in terms of like EPA, when you have this good of a defense, this good of a special teams, that really has been the backbone for the Seahawks.
Yeah, and it's the first time really that I can remember as a football fan, not just even as a Seahawks fan. I think this is true for fans of pretty much every team always, is you're just nervous about special teams. Like I had a stretch there where every time the Seahawks forced a punt, I was just like, don't try and block the kick and call a fair catch. Like, don't rough the kicker and don't fumble on this return or get a holding penalty that puts you inside your own 10. Just fair catch it and don't lose this game.
Even further. The fair catch makes me nervous. I'm like, just send everyone at the punter and no one catch the ball, because I never trust them.
You said this on your show last week.
Every time
you and Billy Gill were talking about it.
I'm like, he's going to fumble. Like, it's too hard to catch a football like that. There's too much pressure in these playoff games. I'm like, don't catch it. Just let it bounce where it goes.
Well, and maybe the single most boring part of football, at least when it comes to like breaking down matchups, is punt coverage, right? Like it's one of those things where it's just like, just get it right. You never really notice it unless you get it wrong. And Seattle has been so airtight in their punt coverage. One, they have one of the most gifted punters we've ever seen in Michael Dixon. Both his ability, it's not just that he has such a high average length of kick. He also has league high hang time. So he's getting the ball 50, 55 yards. You have done every
aspect of this analysis, man. I wish we would have done this pod 2 days ago. I could have included that in my article. I wasn't crunching the hang time numbers. All right, sorry to interrupt you. But
no, it's okay, because it's so hard to block a gunner. And if you have to do it for an extra half second, it becomes impossible. And so you not only have really good coverage, very disciplined punt coverage, you have a punter who can not only kick it very far, but do it with enough hang time for his guys to also be there and really minimize that return. That being said, if I can torture the poker analogy a little bit further, when you are down to your final chips and you've got an inside straight draw, if chips are even, you might just fold that hand, because what are the chances an 8 comes down on the river? But when you are down, you might chase that, because this might be your last chance to really flip the chip stacks before you're out. And the Patriots do have someone in Marcus Jones who's capable of being that 8 in the deck that bails you out. So if he does have a sliver of room in this game, he is the type, like Rashid Shaheed, that can steal a touchdown or steal putting the offense in scoring position without them having to do anything.
Yeah, it's funny because we're talking about this in terms of like, I feel like we both are viewing it as the Patriots need to do something extra. Like they need to sort of, empty the clip, as they say, like in this game, whatever, throw the kitchen sink, whatever you want to say. And they're only 4.5 point underdogs. So, but I do feel that way. I feel the way it sounds like you feel as well, where if they're just playing a straight game, playing it safe, down to down, I do think the Seahawks are pretty clearly the better team, even though it's only a 4.5-point spread. But I wonder how they view it. Do they view it that way? Because sometimes you go in, like the first Super Bowl they won with Brady, I forget, they were like double 12-point underdogs or something. So sometimes you go into a game and you're like, we're huge underdogs, nothing to lose. The Eagles with the Philly special in that 27, it's like, we got nothing to lose, do whatever we want. I wonder if they view it that way, like we got to do some of these things, or do they say, nope, like we can play them straight and we can be good here. So that will be interesting to see as well. These coaches in these high pressure moments, are they willing to call a fake punt, go for 2, go for it on 4th down, call a trick play, all those things that we've seen in Super Bowls past?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. It's funny you mentioned that first Patriots championship. Also, one of their more recent ones, I think they were 2 touchdown underdogs to the Rams, and they didn't do anything special in that game. They just played it straight up. Granted, that was Bill Belichick and all that, but they held highest scoring offense in the NFL to 3 points in that game. Broke Sean McVay's brain, he essentially said afterwards. So, it is possible they think they can just go in and play their game and just win based on the matchups that they have. And I don't think Seattle is going to go into this feeling like, oh, hey, we are prohibitive favorites, so we just need to be uber conservative and, try and shorten this game and keep it low leverage. I do think Seattle, one thing that has been so refreshing watching the Seahawks team is they really do believe you can win a game in the first quarter. They have been so good so many times this year at going out and scoring 20 plus points in the first half and putting them in a position where they can play a little bit closer to the vest down the stretch. And I think they're going to try and do that by being aggressive early on and understanding we need to be in a position where if something fluky happens, if they run a trick play and it works, that's not going to be the difference in the game.
Yeah, I think back to the pod when you came on the Ringer NFL show after that first Seahawks-Rams game. And we were like, they need to trust Sam Darnold more because McDonald is kind of conservative and turtled. And I thought that was a theme throughout the regular season. And then that championship game against the Rams, when they had the ball to ice the game and they were calling play action on 2nd down, I was like, whoa. They got to this point. Now, maybe it was just because that's the opponent and they have so much respect for McVay and Stafford. But yeah, I am interested to see how he handles it here because I think his default would probably be to be like, don't give the game away. Our defense is going to play well. Our special teams is going to play well. We're going to create some explosives on offense. But I don't think maybe this will be a clip we laugh at a week from now.
Right.
I don't think the Seahawks are calling a trick play on special team. I don't think they're doing a fake punt. I don't think it's one of those where if it's like, oh, it's 4th and 3 and I think they're probably going to kick in those spots. But it all depends how the game goes. And if it's in the 4th quarter and it's like, man, Drake May's cooking them, then maybe McDonald changes his approach there. But I feel more that the Patriots would be inclined to start the game that way than the Seahawks would. But you're right. I mean, if they can play action, explosives in the first quarter, get a lead, that's like a smart type of aggression where it's not like you're going to turn the football over on those plays. It's just like let's go for it early on and try to build a lead.
It's interesting. It's something we talked about last week, and obviously I haven't listened to or read every word that's been said or written about the NFC Championship game, but I've listened to and talked to a lot. And one thing I haven't heard anybody talk about is we certainly talked about the mistakes that Rick Woolen made in that sequence, right? Turning a 4th and 12 into a 1st and 10 and then getting torched for a touchdown on the next play. What gets lost in that discussion is that the Seahawks were up 24-20 before that happened and went down and scored another touchdown with really aggressive play calling. They went down and gave themselves the cushion for a fluky disaster thing to happen, and it still not flipped the lead. They still had the 4-point lead. It ended up being the final game. That was the final score of the game, that Puka Nacua touchdown against Woolen. And they built themselves that extra cushion by remaining aggressive, even though they were ahead. And I think that's the approach that we're going to see. So that brings us to the quarterback discussion because, Sam Darnold, obviously much better than my fears this year was exceptional in the NFC Championship game. I think his season really turned around in the fourth quarter of that Rams game that you and I talked about afterwards. But Drake May has been the better quarterback this year, taking on the whole. And Sam Darnold, again, was still the NFL's leader in turnovers, despite one of the lower dropback rates in the NFL. That has flipped in the last month. It has gone to where Sam Darnold is playing mistake-free, aggressive football, and Drake May has really been struggling and looking like a second-year quarterback. I mean, I think he has like 8 turnovers in the postseason, 7 or 8 turnovers in the postseason, and then 3 or 4 other fumbles that his team recovered. What are you putting more stock into right now? The Drake May and Sam Darnold that we saw for most of the season, or the Drake May and Sam Darnold that we've seen over the last month?
Man, that's the $1 million question, because it's recency bias versus, like where you would say, all right, Sam Darnold. I can't be lost to history that they lose that game. They lose the NFC Championship game if Sam Darnold isn't lights out. I mean, that was like a 90th
Absolutely.
percentile EPA per pass play performance from Sam Darnold, where the Seahawks defense, which has been the best in the NFL, got cooked by Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, where you needed that. You needed that from Sam Darnold, and he came through, and it was an awesome performance. And now, he kind of has to, he might not have to do it again. Like he doesn't have to play. I think the difference is he doesn't have to play a close to perfect game for the Seahawks to win. I kind of think Drake May, like if the Patriots win, Drake May's the MVP, and we're going, that was an all-time performance by a 23-year-old quarterback. We'll look at what he just did against one of the best defenses in the NFL, one of the best teams by DVOA. Oh my gosh, I can't believe the Patriots are starting. Get this right away. So I kind of think they're both going to play well. I sort of, I sort of feel like I need to zoom out and not have recency bias with Drake May. The stuff with him with pressure does have me concerned, where he just has not performed well under pressure in the playoffs and has looked like a different guy. Now he's got a shoulder injury. Now he's facing a great defense. So it makes me nervous, but I think he's going to play pretty well. And I think it's set up for Sam Darnold to play pretty well here. I'll be honest. I kept waiting and waiting. I don't trust. Already played well in the regular season. Already played well in that 49ers game at the end of the regular season. But can he do it in the playoffs? All right. Well, he didn't have to do that much in the 49ers game. Can he do it against the Rams? But sometimes this happens, and it's a great story where he played his best game when the stakes were their highest. And I actually think he's going to play well against the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the Seahawks have the edge at quarterback in this game. And call it recency bias. Look, Patriots, all we've talked, you and I haven't talked about it. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but this is the lowest opponent's winning percentage of any Super Bowl team in history. Patriots opponents have won 39% of their games. That's Punxsutawney Phil winning percentage right here. Punxsutawney Phil, that fraud, has a 39% success rate in picking whether or not winner is going to continue for another 6 weeks.
39%? Have you
39%?
Man, you really have crunched all the numbers. Unbelievable.
Man, I'm telling you, that guy's got the best PR team in the business. But you still have to win. And I'm a big fan of saying on the show and in my articles that I don't discount NFL wins. But he's been bad lately. And I mean, that's just it. And you laid out what the numbers are among playoff quarterbacks. His are really bad this playoffs, and his defense has been lights out and has really kind of bailed him out in a lot of this. I think he'll be better than he's been in this game, especially with an extra week to rest that shoulder. But what Matthew Stafford did against this defense was insane in the last 2 games. It's 830 passing yards. It's 7 touchdowns versus 1 turnover in those games. And they lost both of them. What is Drake May going to do that Matthew Stafford couldn't do? And I think that Darnold showed us that if he needs to, he can go band for band with Drake May and trade the punches and end up winning this game. So again, can't believe I'm saying it, but I think the Seahawks have the edge at quarterback in this one.
I think if you swapped the 2 players and kept everything else equal, I would still I think I would still take Drake May, but I don't think what you're saying is crazy based on how they've performed, recently and so far this season. So yeah, it's going to be, man, what a story it would be. Sam Darnold hoisting the Lombardi. It truly would be
beautiful.
It would be a one-of-one career. I mean, literally, we have never seen a quarterback have the numbers that Darnold had after his first 5 years in the NFL and go on to even have an above average rest of his career. And the times they even get to competency are very rare. So to go from that to actually going and being a Super Bowl champion, and again, not being carried by your team the entire time. They don't get there without the way he played in the NFC Championship game. Would be a one-of-one career. And he seems, to your point at the when you were saying at the beginning, just it's like the whole is great, greater than the sum of the parts. And I do think Darnold, he just seems like a likable guy. I go back, think about that Ernest Jones clip after Darnold threw the interceptions against the Rams and Ernest Jones came. That will be an all-time clip if the Seahawks end up winning the Super Bowl, where the guy's just like going above and beyond in defense of his quarterback there. So it really has been an unbelievable story.
No, I felt after that game like Ernest Jones was talking to me, telling me to go fuck myself for blaming Sam Darnold for that loss. I mean, you kidding me? The guy coming out, your defensive captain coming out and saying, after his quarterback threw 4 interceptions and they lost what was probably their best defensive performance of the year, and not even giving an ounce of oxygen to criticism of his quarterback. That is the one thing this season, I said this last week on the show, that is the one thing this season that I wish I had put more stock into, was just how viciously this team defends their quarterback. It's not the typical, he's our quarterback, he's our guy, we believe in him. It was like, truly, fuck you for doubting Sam Darnold. And I was like, yep. I hear you, EJ. I hear you, man. So, I mean, that'll be interesting. And I could very easily see Sam Darnold going out and being Super Bowl MVP. And you're right. It would be an unbelievable cap to one of the most improbable stories we've seen, certainly in my lifetime watching the NFL. The last piece of this is another one that gets overlooked. But as the NFL continues to modernize, and as more and more information gets brought into the decision-making of coaching football, we are seeing the importance of great coaching. And I was thinking about this today, actually listening to your show from last week on my morning cigar walk, was if I'm picking a coach right now, I can have any of the 32 head coaches to start a franchise with. I'm probably still taking Sean McVay, but for the last 5 years, that was a no-doubter answer for me. There's 2 other coaches that I'm thinking really hard about taking over Sean McVay, and they're the 2 coaches in this game. But they're both coaching their first Super Bowl also. Do you see an edge between Mike Vrabel and Mike Macdonald? And if maybe each of them have an advantage over the other, what would that be?
I mean, McDonald may be just the defensive version of Sean McVay, where we might just be pencil them in for a top 5 top 5 defense every single season. Because now that he's done it at two stops. Last year, their defense finished really strong. They had a good defense, just needed one off season to get some different players in there and the younger players, get them up to speed, get player development, get them to improve. And they have the best defense in the NFL. So I think usually we've talked about this before, defense year to year isn't as sticky as offense, where you might have a great defense one year, but not the next year. But I know when I do my defensive rankings in August, I'm going to have the Seahawks as a top 3 unit pretty much every year. McDonald is coaching them until he proves otherwise that he is fallible. So he's obviously just got the edge in terms of scheme, I think, against Josh McDaniels. I know some people love Josh McDaniels. I feel like, I haven't been the biggest Josh McDaniels fan. I think he's done a good job this year, but I think a lot of it has been great quarterback play. So I give him the big schematic edge there. Vrabel gets credit for the little stuff in terms of game management. Now, I think some of that is overblown. Like Sean Payton got crushed for going for it on fourth down in that AFC Championship game, and no one seemed to notice that Mike Vrabel went for it on fourth down when the game was tied. And he just got it, so no one cared, there. But I do think he does a good job. I think he makes the aggressive decisions at the right time. I think he is bold. I don't think he's worried about being wrong with those types of things. He looks for the little edges. They were showing it in the one broadcast about kind of make sure you rotate the defensive lineman in when the offense takes a sub, slow them down a little bit, take your time when you're doing it. So all those types of things, I'm curious if he has anything up his sleeve where they're talking about during the broadcast, he's exploiting this rule that, we don't really talk about much there. But I do think he always looks for those edges and does a good job with those.
Yeah, I have a hard time finding like a schematic edge that Vrabel would have over McDonald. One thing, if there is an advantage, and I do think this is a real thing in Super Bowls, is Mike Vrabel is very experienced with handling the pomp and the circumstance and the circus of the 2 weeks in between the championship game and the Super Bowl, because I think it's easy as fans to overlook or even just not be aware of how distracting this can be for players, and not just all of the media stuff that they have to do, and not just all of the sponsorship stuff that they have to do, but also their phones are blowing up in ways that it never has before. They've got family and friends trying to get tickets and trying to be involved in this process. And that's all very distracting for a lot of players. And they're also spending a week in a massive party environment. And Mike Vrabel has been there, and he has navigated that successfully as a player. And I think that not to say that Mike McDonald won't, but Mike McDonald doesn't have the experience of going through this process that Vrabel does. And so I do think there could be a small mindset edge in terms of just being prepared and being focused leading up to this game that a lot of first-time Super Bowl head coaches can't bring to the table.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The nerves, the messaging, you're kind of going out there, not playing loose, not playing the same way you've played the entire season. So yeah, it's hard to just pinpoint that and define it. But I do think you're absolutely right that is a big part of the entire Super Bowl experience. You've heard players talk about it before, just having the longer halftime, having your warm up, and then you're gone for a while, even at the beginning of the game. All those things are different when it comes to the Super Bowl.
One of the things I was going to ask you on the show, but I'm sensitive to the amount of time you have available since you're down in the maelstrom in the Bay right now. So I do want to ask you one more question. I was going to ask you which of these teams reminds you most of the Eagles. That's your team. You got the Phillies hat on. Yeah. You've covered the Eagles closely, and they're a great barometer because they had a very dominant championship run last year. They are still, until Sunday, the reigning champs of the NFL. And, that's a conversation we can revisit in shows in the future. Instead, I want to get your thoughts before I get your prediction on a lot of times with these Super Bowls. You mentioned it, anything can happen in one game. You see Super Bowl MVPs that are not the quarterback. You see Super Bowl MVPs that are not the superstar running back or wide receiver. So if I told you had to place a bet on a Super Bowl MVP that was not a quarterback, a wide receiver, or a running back, I want you to give me one for each team. And I'm kind of just springing this on you here.
Yeah.
So
I'm pulling up my FanDuel, I'm a company man here.
Hey, I get it. I'll start. Okay. I think for the Patriots, if this happens, the guy who wins it is going to be Marcus Jones. And I think it's going to be a combination of a big special teams play, and he housed an interception against the Texans. He was probably the MVP of that game. I think he had 2 picks and 1 return for a score. I think that if interior pressure is getting to Sam Darnold and he does turn the ball over a couple of times, wouldn't surprise me at all if Marcus Jones is the guy doing it for the Patriots and kind of stealing that Super Bowl MVP in the way that Malcolm Smith was the Super Bowl MVP for the Seahawks, even though it should have been Cam Chancellor in that game. And then for the Seahawks, I think Rashid Shaheed is a tempting pick, and he's certainly yours if you want him. but the way that DeMarcus Lawrence has been playing this year and the sheer volume of splash plays that he's come up with this season in terms of defensive touchdowns, game-changing sacks, forcing turnovers, strips for ball carriers 25 yards down the field, the way that he broke his assignment on the 4th and 4 play to cover Kyron Williams, the fortuitous bust that Sean McVay called it, all of that stuff speaks to me to the type of player that can go out and say, holy shit, DeMarcus Lawrence is the reason they won this game.
Yeah, I was looking, and he would be the choice if you're going by the odds here. He is. He's the first. He has the highest odds of any defensive player.
It's wild, man.
On the board, and I get it. You just laid out the explanation. I mean, there's a scenario where this is just a butt kicking by the Seahawks front against that Patriots offensive line, and you could pick whichever guy you want. Right. Lawrence, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams might be right there for me, you know, because his best games we've seen with the Seahawks, you're just like, is this the best player in the NFL? Like, he's got that ceiling where he's capable of doing that. So for fun, I'll go with Leonard Williams here and say he's providing that interior pressure trait. You know, DeMarcus Lawrence is providing the pressure on the edge, tries to step up, and Leonard Williams maybe has 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble, maybe a scoop and score, and it's kind of a low-scoring game that the Seahawks end up winning.
Yeah, I could totally say. I mean, I think that if we had a better way of just measuring impact, Leonard Williams might be the best player in this game. It's hard to accrue the type of stats necessary to win a Super Bowl MVP as an interior defensive lineman. But if there is one that can do it, it's probably him. So last question before we get you out of here, and here's the way I'm going to frame it. If you get the team right on who wins the Super Bowl, you get $10,000.
Okay.
If you get the score right, you get $1 million. Who's winning? What's the score?
Okay, now this I don't want to be the fraud who gives out different predictions on different platforms. So let me say, I have this the first time I'm going on record. So later in the week, I will have my official Super Bowl prediction because I have it.
Right.
I'm definitely leaning Seahawks. I'm leaning Seahawks covering. Score, give me Seahawks 24, Patriots 16. There's a chance that I build up more courage at the end of the week and predict a bigger blowout. I'll tell you that. But right now, I'm not going to change my pick. I don't think I'm going to change it. I'm not going to change my pick against the spread, but I may turn that into a double-digit win for the Seahawks. I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, well, I'll preface my answer by saying I am hammering every alternative spread I can find for the Seahawks in this one. I think there is a good chance that this is an ass whooping. Now, look, I'm not saying the Patriots can't win this game. I think you play this game 10 times, the Patriots win 3 of them. That's enough to scare you. But I think that in 4 to 5 of those, the Seahawks are winning by 2 scores. I've got it 28-16 and not feeling that close. I'm talking like 28-16 with, it's 28-9 and the Patriots get a score, something like that, right? Yeah. And so that's how I see it. Also think that if the Seahawks get a big lead, this is something else I haven't seen anybody mention that we talked about on the show last week is the Seahawks didn't allow a score in the 4th quarter to the Rams in either of their last 2 games. They didn't allow a score in the 4th quarter to the 49ers in either of their last 2 games. They didn't allow a score in the 4th quarter to the Panthers before that. That is 4 consecutive 4th quarter shutouts that the Seahawks have pitched. 3 of those games against very good offenses statistically. So I just don't see this being a game where if the Patriots are down by a couple of scores late, that they're going to be able to get back in it because that is not what the Seahawks do.
Yeah, that would be very tough. They would kind of have to go bombs away, and they're one-dimensional, and now you have to protect in the pass rush. So I think that would be a tough game script for the Patriots. I will say, Drake made his highs this year. He is capable of putting the Patriots on his back. I think if you're a Patriots fan and you're like, the reason we're going to win this Super Bowl is because just our quarterback's going to revert to the guy who I think was the MVP during the regular season. He does have that in him.
Oh, no question, man. Listen, Sheil, this has been awesome. You know, you and I could do this for 4 hours, but in the interest of your time, in the interest of the time of the folks listening and watching to this, I think it's a great place to end it. I really, really, really appreciate you coming in, man.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and we'll talk soon.
All right, y'all, that is going to do it for today. Once again, a huge thank you to my friend Sheil Kapadia for coming on the show, breaking down the biggest Seahawks game in over 10 years. As always, you can find Mike and I on social media. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jacson Bevins. That's Jacson. Remember that no K is okay when spelling my name. Mike is on both at Mike Barwin, and the show itself is at Cigar Thoughts on Twitter and at CigarThoughtsNFL.com on Blue Sky. You can catch full video episodes on our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts and find the rest of our socials at CigarThoughtsNFL.com. As mentioned previously, this episode is brought to you by Balvenie Premium Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of their lineup, and we are thrilled to have them on board as a sponsor of the show. One of the great things about a great Scotch is how well it plays with a great cigar, which is why I want to remind you one more time that we do have our own special release of cigars that you can purchase at a terrific price as a listener of the show. The release of these Cigar Thoughts Stogies has been successful enough for us to continue offering them for the low price of $149. That's right, just $149 for a bundle of 10. As you know, we partnered with one of the most prestigious cigar manufacturers in the world to release these official Cigar Thoughts cigars, which you can order directly from CigarThoughtsNFL.com. Just follow the link on the show page to get these easy-to-smoke stogies rolled with 13-year aged premium Dominican tobacco leaf, or hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. We'll send you the details directly. The cigars come with a Bovita humidification pack and a Mylar storage bag to make sure they stay fresh whether you have a humidor or not. Of course, you can listen to this show at fieldgoals.com and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you like the show, drop us a 5-star rating and leave a quick review. Thank you to all of y'all listening and watching for your continued support of this show. We know you've only got so much time for podcasts in your life, and it is an honor to be a part of that for y'all. Please know that by sharing this show on social media and with your friends, you give us the juice to keep making this happen. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, onwards and upwards, my friends.